This is another type of word problem, but it doesn't have a graph like the ones that we did yesterday. But we can use substitution, which we learned a few days ago. But in order to do this, we're going to have to, just as the directions say, and I'm going to read them, we're going to have to write the system. We're going to have to actually write two equations. So let me go ahead and read it. We'll follow the directions. It says we're going to write a system of equations to describe the situation, and then we're going to solve using substitution, and then we'll fill in our answers. So here's the situation. Two tailors, Kendra and Avery, sit down to do some embroidery. Kendra can embroider 3 shirts per hour, and Avery can get through 6 shirts per hour. In addition, the tailors had previously finished some shirts. Kendra had already completed 17 shirts, and Avery has completed 11 shirts. Kendra and Avery decided to take a break when they have finished the same total number of shirts. They want to know how many hours that will take, and how many shirts in total each one will have finished. So let's use, like we normally do, a couple of different colors. Maybe for one of the tailors, let's use, I don't know, red. Let's use that for Kendra. Kendra will say is red. Kendra can embroider 3 shirts per hour, and it also says Kendra has already completed 17 shirts. By the way, like when we had a graph, we're going to use 2 variables. So let me finish writing some notes here. So, by the way, these take a few minutes, so I don't think they give you a whole lot of problems in this module. Okay, all right. So the notes that we want to use, it says that since we're solving a system using substitution, we need, like the directions say, to write 2. I'm going to capitalize that. 2 equations with 2 different variables or letters. Okay. In this problem, we need to know how many hours. I'm going to capitalize it. Whoops. How many hours it takes, and how many shirts. I'm capitalizing shirts and hours because those are the 2 things we don't know. The technical name for that is unknown, but we're just going to use the word variables. We're going to use a letter for hours, and I think we should use H, and a different letter for shirts. Probably want to use S. Okay, so let's use H for hours, and let's use S for shirts. Okay, or how many shirts? Let me, for how many? H for how many hours, and S for how many shirts. I'm going to highlight that so we can see that a little bit better. H for hours and S for shirts. Okay. Now I'm still going to use 2 different colors. Like I said, I think I'll use red for Kendra, and I'll do that equation first. I'll write an equation for Kendra, and let me just put that here in red ink. So for Kendra, the number of shirts is going to be equal to the number that she already had. She already started with 17. And then she's going to keep adding to that by doing 3 every hour. So 3 shirts times however many hours she works. Okay, the other person, Avery, let's use blue. So Avery can do 6 shirts an hour, and Avery has started with 11 shirts. So for Avery, let's do that in blue, Avery. The number of shirts that Avery makes is going to start with 11, and she's going to add 6 shirts every hour. Okay, so now we've done the first part, and you want to use, I'm using my screen, but you'll want to use a piece of paper to write these 2 equations down. Remember, we're going to substitute here. Substitute means we're going to replace. So let me remind you of that by writing it down on a note here. We could move back to that in a minute to write that. Oops, to write that. So let me just say, we want to remember that substitute, the method they told us to use. Did I spell that right? I think that's right. I'll fix it later. All right, that substitute means that we need to replace a variable or a letter with an expression. All right, and let me make that just one line so we can move it over. So that's what we're going to do. So in this problem, in this red and this blue equation, it says 2 things. It says that S is the same thing as 17 plus 3H. It also says that S is the same thing as 11 plus 6H. I'm going to use the first one. Let me circle what I just said. And I'm going to circle it, I think, with blue. It says that whenever we see an S, we can replace it with this. We can substitute it with this. So now we're going to go to this second equation right here. This second equation, I should say the other one, the other equation. There we go. Let me see. I'm going to write it down again. Oops, I'm going to write it again here. And I just copied it. It's okay. So it's the same equation that we used before, but I'm going to replace this S right here with 17 plus 3H. Because a minute ago, we just said that S is the same thing as 17 plus 3H. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to write the whole equation over again. Instead of S, I'm going to write 17 plus 3H, and the rest will stay the same. 11 plus 6H. And what this does is it takes a problem that previously had 2 equations, a red equation and a blue equation, and breaks it down into one equation. Not only is it just one equation, but it only has one letter. Right now that letter is H. So we can solve this equation just by combining like terms. Let me move that again. So we want to get the like terms together. Really doesn't matter which side. We can switch them later if we want to. But I want to get the H's, let's say, on the right-hand side. I'm going to do that by subtracting 3H from this side and subtracting 3H from that side. That's going to add up to 0. And let's write what I didn't cross off. 17, I didn't cross off. The equals I didn't cross off. The 11 I didn't cross off. And then we have 6H minus 3H, which is just 3H. We also want to get the terms that don't have H by themselves or isolated. Here we could subtract 11 from both sides. Okay, so if I subtract 11 from this side, I'll need more room in a second, and subtract 11 from that side, Um, those will add up to 0 or simplify. And again, we'll write down what we didn't cross off. 3h here. 17 minus 11 is 6. And like I said, if you like, you can switch this. 6 equals 3h is the same as 3h equals 6. Okay. Let me make more room. And so the last thing we need to do to find h is just to divide both of these by 3, both sides by 3. And so h is equal to 6 divided by 3, which is 2. Now, we're not quite done, because what we have is part of our answer, or one of the variables. Remember, we have to find h and s. We just found h, and I'll put it in the answer box in a minute. But what we want to do now, since we're doing substitution, is go back. And here's the nice part. We started with these two equations. I have them up there in red and blue. You can see the red equation and the blue equation. We could pick either one of those, and whenever we see the h, we're just going to replace it with the 2. I'm talking about these equations right here that we wrote at the beginning of the problem, which it said to do. I'm circling them with green. These two equations, pick either one of those. I like red; it's my favorite color, so I'm going to pick the red one. The blue one would work also, though. So I'm going to write that red equation. But when I write it, I'm going to put the h in parentheses. So it says s is equal to 17. I don't want my s to look like a 5, so I might usually make my letters a little bit smaller than my numbers. Plus 3. Like I said, I want to put the h here in parentheses. And the reason I put that in parentheses is because I want you to remember just a second ago, we said, I'm going to circle it with green, we said that h is 2. So we can replace, I'm going to actually erase and replace. I'm going to replace that h with the letter 2, with the number 2. And it doesn't matter if I make it blue or whatever. So there we go. So that's going to be 3 times 2, and our s will be equal to 17. 3 times 2 is 6. And that's a simple addition if I can make just a little more room. S is going to be equal to 23. 17 plus 6 is 23. 23. So that's our other variable. Remember, our problem here was to find two things: the number of shirts and the number of hours that they worked. So the number of hours is 2. Let me write that before I put the answer in the box. The number of hours equals 2, and the number of shirts is 23. So this is a long problem, I know. So you might want to stop this recording, this video, pause it, write down what I did, rewind it if you need to go back and see it. And let me just put these two answers in the box. So H is 2 and shirts is 23. Let's go back to our boxes here. Remember, that's what they asked us right here. There we go. Whoops. Number of shirts was 23. And number of hours was 2. So in 2 hours, they will each have finished 23 shirts. All right.